Okay, I hope I'm audible to all students who are attending this lecture. We continue with our lectures on introductory microeconomics. Okay, and in this particular lecture, we intend to start with a new topic within introductory microeconomics called consumer theory. This is a new topic within our introductory microeconomics course, okay? And also one of the core topics of microeconomics, okay? In any microeconomics course, studying about the consumer theory, how consumers behave, is one of the most crucial topics, okay? So what we'll be doing in this topic, okay? So we study we study how the consumer makes choices. We study how the consumer makes choices given the consumption bundles, given the consumption bundles and his income and price of goods. So the key interest in consumer theory is to find out how consumers make decisions regarding how much goods to buy given their constrained income and the fixed price of the goods. Okay, all of us know that consumers face trade-off. Okay, consumers face trade-offs. How do consumers face trade-off? When the consumer buys, when the consumer buys more of one good, when the consumer buys more of one good, then they have to forego, then they have to forego with another good since they are constrained by income. Since they are constrained by income. Since income of the consumer is limited, the consumer cannot have excess of both the commodities. Obviously, with fixed income, if the consumer decides to buy more of one good, that consumer will have to sacrifice or forego with another good. Was your income unlimited, you could have had excess of both the goods. Okay, so here comes a very important concept in consumer theory, which is called as the budget constraint. So the budget constraint captures the affordability of the consumer. The budget constraint captures the affordability. Okay, so we can write the budget constraint is defined as the budget constraint is defined as the limit on the consumption bundles, the limit on the consumption bundles that a consumer can afford, that a consumer can afford. Okay, so the budget constraint will put a limit on the amount of consumption bundles the consumer can actually afford given his income. Okay, so guys, let us look at the equation of the budget constraint. So let's come properly to the budget constraint equation. Okay, so let there be two commodities X and Y. Okay, let there be two commodities X and Y. Px is the price of good X. Px is the price of good X. Py is the price of good Y. Okay. Okay. And we can say that Px comma Py, Px Py is my price vector. Px Py is our price vector. Px is the price of good X and Py is the price of good Y. Similarly, guys, we have this is X comma Y. This is my commodity vector. X comma Y is my commodity vector. Okay. Now, when I talk about total expenditure, what is total expenditure? So total expenditure is nothing but the dot product of the price vector, the dot product of the price vector with the commodity vector. Okay, we are talking about the commodities in the two dimensions. So basically in our model, we are talking only about two commodities X and Y. In the economy, we only have two commodities X and Y. Okay, so we are dealing with the two dimension in this case. So in the two dimension space, our total expenditure will be the dot product of the price vector with the commodity vector. All of us know what is this coming out as? This is Px times X plus Py times Y. This is my total expenditure. Okay. And let M denote, or we can say let M denote the income of the consumer. Let M denote the income of the consumer. Then my budget constraint equation is my total expenditure, which is Px times X plus Py times Y should be less than or equal to our income. So this is the equation of the budget constraint. For any consumer, his total expenditure cannot exceed his total income. Right now, when we are deriving this budget constraint, guys, the key assumption here also is that there is no possibility of borrowing. Right now, there is no possibility of borrowing. Since there is no possibility of borrowing, your total expenditure cannot exceed your total income. It has to be less than or equal to your income. So if I quickly revise it again, we are assuming two commodities X and Y in the economy. Okay. So all these are vectors in R square. It means all of these are vectors in two dimension space, the X axis and the Y axis. Px is the price of good X, Py is the price of good Y. We are assuming perfect competition. So there is perfect competition. Perfect competition means that both the prices are fixed, because in perfect competition, price is fixed by the industry. Okay, they are fixed. My price vector is given by this. This is my commodity vector. Define total expenditure as the dot product of the price vector with the commodity vector, which is nothing but Px into X plus Py into Y. Let M denote the income of the consumer, which is also fixed. So my budget constraint simply indicates that total expenditure by the consumer should be less than or equal to the total income. Okay, so guys, if we plot the budget constraint, so let's draw a diagram. Let's draw the graph, how it looks like. So my budget constraint is pxx plus pyy less than equal to m. Now when we plot the budget constraint, what all do we need? We need the horizontal intercept. So my horizontal intercept, how do we get the horizontal intercept? So to find out the horizontal intercept, put y equal to 0. So this implies, so this is my budget constraint, guys. From this, what will be my budget line? Because to find the horizontal and the vertical intercept, first let me introduce to you what is the budget line. Okay, so let us first see what is meant by the budget line. So budget line consists of combination of combination of x comma y which cost the consumer exactly his income. So when we talk about the budget line, guys, the budget line consists of combinations of good X and good Y which cost the consumer exactly his income. So if I plot the budget line equation, it's going to be Px into X plus Py into Y exactly equal to M. So remember, you should understand what is the difference between a budget constraint and a budget line. A budget constraint is going to give you combinations of good X and good Y which cost you either less than or equal to your income. Whereas a budget line will give you combinations of good X and good Y which will cost you exactly your income. So now from the budget line, we can calculate the horizontal and the vertical intercept, and we can also work out the diagram on the right hand side. We can also work out the diagram on the right hand side. Okay, so you can clearly see, suppose we measure good X on the horizontal axis and suppose we measure good Y on the vertical axis. Now students, if you look at MANQ, since we are following the MANQ reading, okay, MANQ takes good Y on the horizontal axis and good X on the vertical axis. But in my lectures, I will be following the standard notation. Usually we take good X on the horizontal axis, good Y on the vertical axis. Okay, but understand our concepts and our analysis will not change if I switch the axis. That means if I take good Y here and good X here, it is not going to make any difference in terms of conceptual understanding. But in my lectures, I will prefer to take good X on the horizontal axis, good Y on the vertical axis. But if you look at the book MANQ, which we are following for this course, MANQ takes good X on the vertical and good Y on the horizontal axis. Okay, so what will our horizontal intercept be? So let's work out the horizontal intercept. So guys, how do we find the horizontal intercept? Put y equal to 0 in the budget line. y equal to 0 in the budget line, I get x as m by px. So my x comes out as m by px. How will I interpret this? So interpretation, this is the maximum amount of good x. This is the maximum amount of good x that the consumer can afford to consume. This is the maximum amount of good X that the consumer can afford to consume given his income and prices. Given his income and prices. Okay, this is how we calculate the horizontal intercept. Now let's work out the vertical intercept, guys. Let's see what it comes out as. So if I quickly write the vertical intercept, how will the vertical intercept look like? Let's calculate the vertical intercept. So how do we find the vertical intercept? Put x equal to 0 in the budget line. Put x equal to 0 in the budget line. So if I put x equal to 0 in this, I get y as m by py. So I get y as m upon py. Now how will I interpret this? This is the maximum amount of good y the consumer can afford to consume. The consumer can afford to consume given his income and prices. Given his income and prices. So I hope students have understood how we have calculated the horizontal intercept HI and the vertical intercept VI. Horizontal intercept is calculated by putting y equal to 0 in the budget line, and horizontal intercept will tell us the maximum amount of good X the consumer can afford to consume given his income and prices. Vertical intercept is calculated by putting x equal to 0 in the budget line, and that will give us the maximum amount of good Y the consumer can afford to consume given his income and prices. Now, how do we find the slope of the budget line? So our next question is finding the slope. Okay, so erasing the horizontal intercept and the vertical intercept part, I hope students have understood this now. We now see how we can work out the slope. So guys, what is the slope? Mathematically, all of us know slope is nothing but dy by dx. When y is measured on the vertical axis and x is measured on the horizontal axis. So slope of the budget line is nothing but dy by dx. Okay. So guys, let us work out dy by dx. So we are given px into x plus py into y equal to m. So this implies py into y is equal to m minus px into x. This implies my y is m upon py minus px by py times x. Okay. Now guys, this is the equation. We have written y in terms of x. Let's work out dy by dx. Now dy by dx, if I differentiate it, my income is constant. My price of good x and price of good y both are constant. So when I differentiate, what do I get? I get minus px by py. So this is nothing but my slope of the budget line. So slope of the budget line is minus px by py, where px and py are fixed. So hoping that students have understood how we have calculated the slope. Okay, all students should know from the mathematical methods for economics course, when we measure the slope, it simply captures the change in y upon change in x. Mathematically, it's dy by dx. It means when we are given the budget equation, write y in terms of x and differentiate it, you get the slope of the budget line. Okay, now some observations. So let's look at some observations. So I am erasing the initial part. So, or let me work it out here, guys. Let me work it out here. You can clearly see that slope of the budget line is negative because it's minus px by py, it's negative. This means that budget line is downward sloping. This means that the budget line is downward sloping. Okay, when the slope is negative, mathematically the budget line is downward sloping. This means if the consumer decides to buy more of good X, the consumer will have to sacrifice some amount of good Y because income is limited. The consumer is constrained by income. Okay, second thing we observe that slope of the budget line is also constant. So slope of the budget line is constant. Why? Because px and py are fixed. Perfect competition, guys. Px and py are fixed. Now since slope of the budget line is constant, therefore budget line is linear. Budget line is linear. So all students should know from the high school mathematics and basic calculus, when the slope is constant, it means that line is linear. So two things we learned: slope of the budget line is constant and budget line is downward sloping. Now if I combine these two and if I join my horizontal intercept and vertical intercept, I get my budget line. So you can see I have drawn a straight downward sloping budget line. Why is the budget line straight? Because the slope of the budget line is a constant. Why is it downward sloping? Because the slope is negative. Students should be able to argue everything logically and mathematically in this course. You should know why is the budget line straight? Why is it not a curve? It is straight because the slope of the budget line is a constant. It is the ratio of market prices which are fixed by the industry under perfect competition. Second thing, why is the budget line downward sloping? Because mathematically the slope of the budget line is negative. If the consumer affords more of good X, the consumer will have to give up some amount of good Y because the consumer is constrained by income. Okay, so if I call this as point A and if I call this as point B, then AB is my budget line. AB is my budget line. Okay, AB is the budget line. And if I talk about the budget set now, if I talk about the budget set, the whole red shaded area, this whole red shaded area, including this triangle, the whole red shaded area, including this triangle, is my budget set. So I can write this is my budget set. So I can write it like this, guys. Triangle OAB Triangle OAB is our budget set. So what do we observe? We observe that the budget line is costing you exactly your income. All points on the budget line AB will cost you exactly your income. But when we talk about the budget set, it not only includes the budget line, it also includes all combinations below the budget line. So hoping that students have understood this. Okay. Now we can learn how we interpret the slope of the budget line. So interpretation of the slope of the budget line. Interpretation of the slope of the budget line. So the slope of the budget line, which we have found as minus px by py, measures the rate at which the consumer can trade one good for another. It measures the rate at which the consumer can trade one good for another. In other words, it is the opportunity cost. In other words, it is the opportunity cost of the consumer to consume one. It is the opportunity cost of the consumer to consume one. So guys, let's understand this through an example. Let's understand this interpretation through an example. Suppose price of good X in the economy is $10 and price of good Y in the economy is $2. Okay, suppose price of good X is $10 and price of good Y is $2 hypothetically. Okay, what is the slope of the budget line? Slope of the budget line is minus px by py, which is minus 10 by 2, which is minus 5. Now, how will I interpret this? So this means that if the consumer decides to buy one more unit of good X, he will have to sacrifice 5 units of good Y. 5 units of good Y given his income. So you can clearly see, guys, good X costs $10, good Y costs $2. So suppose I have $10 in my pocket. If I plan to buy 1 unit of good X, how many units of good Y I am giving up? With those $10, I could have bought 5 units of good Y because price of good Y is $2. Now, when I plan to buy 1 unit of good X, how much units of good Y I am sacrificing? I am sacrificing 5 units of good Y. So I hope students have understood how we have interpreted the slope. So in this case, if the consumer decides to buy one more unit of good X, he will have to sacrifice 5 units of good Y. So I can write it like this also. Therefore, the opportunity cost of good X is 5 units of good Y. Opportunity cost of good X is 5 units of good Y. That means if I plan to buy one more unit of good X, I will have to sacrifice 5 units of good Y. So hoping that students have understood how to interpret the slope of the budget line. Okay. Now guys, let us look at what all factors cause changes in the budget line. So factors causing shift in the budget line. Factors causing shift in the budget line. Okay, so let's look at the factors. So guys, what is the equation of the budget line? Equation of the budget line is px times x plus py times y equal to income. This is the equation of the budget line. Now the first factor which causes the shift in the budget line are the commodity prices px and py. And another factor is income. So first let's look at changes in income. Let's first look at changes in income. So what will happen to the budget line when income goes up, when income goes down? So let's look at two cases, guys. So case one, when income goes up from M to M dash. So I can write it like this so that students don't get confused. When income goes up from M to M dash. So my initial budget line equation. What is my initial equation, guys? Px times x plus py times y equal to m. Horizontal intercept m by px, vertical intercept m by py, and slope of the budget line is minus px by py. What will my new equation be? When income goes up from M to M dash, my new equation will be Px times X plus Py times Y equal to M dash, right? Horizontal intercept will be M dash by Px, vertical intercept M dash by Py, slope, guys, if you calculate the slope of the new equation, you will see it comes out the same, minus px by py. So guys, now we can compare the initial and the new equation. What do you observe? You compare the horizontal intercept. Initially horizontal intercept was m by px. Now it is m dash by px. You can see the same denominator, but your numerator has gone up. So what I can say is, if I compare, I can see that my horizontal intercept has gone up. Let us look at the vertical intercept, guys. If you compare the vertical intercept from the initial to the new case, you can see for the same denominator, again numerator has gone up from m to m dash. So vertical intercept has gone up. And what about the slope? You can see slope initially was also minus px by py. Slope now is also minus px by py. You write this equation in terms of y and differentiate it with respect to x, you get minus px by py. You write this equation in terms of y and differentiate with respect to x, you will again get minus px by py. So what do we learn? The slope remains unchanged. So guys, if we draw the corresponding diagram on the right hand side, what do we learn? So this is good x on the horizontal axis, good y on the vertical axis. This is our initial budget line. Okay. This is m by px. This is m by py, vertical intercept. Okay, and the slope of the budget line is minus px by py. Now clearly when our income goes up, our horizontal intercept has gone up from m by px to m dash by px. Our vertical intercept has also gone up from m by py to m dash by py, but my slope is the same. Now if the slope is the same, that means both the budget lines are parallel to each other, because mathematically if two lines are parallel, they have the same slope. Recall guys, if two lines are parallel, they have the same slope. So if you work this out, you can clearly see that both these lines are parallel to each other. So my budget line will shift parallelly to the right when income goes up. Okay, so in other words, I can say if my initial budget line was AB, my new budget line is A1, B1. And both the budget lines are parallel to each other. So I can write an increase in income causes the budget line to shift parallelly to the right, or I can say parallelly outwards. An increase in income causes the budget line to shift parallelly outwards. Okay, so I hope students have understood the impact of an increase in income on the budget line. Now guys, exactly the opposite is going to happen when income goes down. Okay, so if I make the required changes, suppose the income goes down, from M to M double dash. This is case 2. Okay, what is going to be the required change? What is going to be the required change? Let's go through it, guys. You can see the initial equation will remain unchanged. HI, VI and slope will remain unchanged. In the new equation, Px into x plus Py into y is equal to M double dash. Horizontal intercept M double dash by Px, vertical intercept M double dash by Py. If you calculate the slope, it still remains minus Px by Py. If you now do a comparison, you can see that horizontal intercept has now gone down because numerator has gone down with the same denominator. Vertical intercept has also gone down, but your slope has remained unchanged. So if I work out the budget line, horizontal intercept has gone down from M by Px to M double dash by Px. Vertical intercept has also gone down from M by Py to M double dash by Py, but slope is the same. That means my budget line shifts parallelly, but now to the left or parallelly inwards. So suppose this is my point A2, this is my point B2. Okay, so my budget line shifts from AB, which is my initial budget line, to A2B2, which is my new budget line. So guys, I can write one line. Therefore, a fall in income causes the budget line. Okay, a fall in income causes the budget line to shift parallelly inwards. So I hope students have understood the budget line shifts when income changes. Okay. Let's now work out the second case. What happens when price of one of the commodities changes? Okay. So let's erase this off. Let's look at the equation of the budget line, which is px into x plus py into y equal to m. This is the equation of the budget line. Okay, and we now look at what happens when price of one of the goods changes. Okay, so we look at the case, suppose, so I can now put a broad heading first, price changes. The case one was income change, now we are doing price changes, and within price changes we are doing the first case we are doing. Okay, what happens when, so case one, when px falls, keeping p2 and m constant, price of good 2 and income of the consumer is constant, unchanged, and price of good x falls. Okay, so py and m are constant and px is falling. Okay, so let's look at the initial equation, guys. Initial equation of the budget line is px times x plus py times y equal to m. Horizontal intercept m by px, vertical intercept m by py, and slope of the budget line is minus px by py. Now, when price of good x falls to px dash, our new equation will be px times x plus py times y equal to m dash px dash times x plus py times y equal to m. This is going to be our equation when price of good x falls to px dash. Okay, so this is our new equation. Horizontal intercept m upon px dash, vertical intercept m upon py, slope of the budget line minus px dash by py. Okay, so guys, we can now compare the cases. So look at the horizontal intercept m by px and m by px dash. So you can see for the same numerator, denominator has gone down. That means my horizontal intercept has gone up. Look at the vertical intercept. Vertical intercept initially was m by py, now also it's m by py. So vertical intercept has remained unchanged. Okay, and let's look at the slope, guys. Minus px by py. Now it has become minus px dash by py. That means for the same denominator, numerator has gone down. That means I can say slope has gone down. Slope has gone down means budget line has become flatter than before. Budget line has become flatter than before. Remember, guys, when slope goes down, the line becomes more flatter. When slope goes up, the line becomes more steeper. This is the fundamental concept of slope which we learn in high school mathematics. Okay, so if you work out the diagram, so you can see the diagram on your screens. This is we have good X on the horizontal axis. Okay, good X on the horizontal axis, good Y on the vertical axis. This is my initial budget line. Horizontal intercept m by px, vertical intercept m by py. Okay, you can see guys, your vertical intercept is the same, but your horizontal intercept has gone up, because for the same numerator you can see denominator has fallen from px to px dash. A fall in denominator given the same numerator causes the whole term to go up. So my horizontal intercept now becomes m upon px dash. Okay, and you can see my budget line swindles from the black budget line to the red budget. So this was my budget line AB, initial budget line. Now it is AB1. Slope of the initial budget line was minus px by py. Slope of this new budget line is minus px dash by py, and you can clearly see that the budget line has become more flatter than before. So guys, mathematically it is making sense. You can argue it logically also. For the same price of good Y and income, since good X price is falling, it is becoming more cheaper. Since good X is becoming more cheaper, you can afford to buy more of it. So we can write, since good X becomes cheaper, the consumer can now afford to buy more of it. The consumer can now afford to buy more of it. Nothing is happening to good Y intercept because good Y price is not changing. So vertical intercept remains the same. There is no change in the vertical intercept. So hoping that students have understood this case. And guys, then within this, let's look at the case. What happens when price of good Y rises? What happens when price of good Y rises, keeping the price of good Y and income constant? We want to see what happens when price of good X rises. So guys, initial equation will remain the same. Horizontal, vertical intercept and slope will remain the same. But now, a small change. Suppose when the price of good X rises to Px double dash. So my new equation will be Px double dash times X plus Py times Y is equal to M. Okay. My horizontal intercept will be M upon Px double dash. Vertical intercept will be M upon Py. Slope will be minus Px double dash upon Py. Now guys, we can quickly do a comparison of the initial case with the new case. So what do we learn? Look at the horizontal intercept. For the same numerator M, you can see denominator has gone up. For the same numerator, if denominator goes up, it means horizontal intercept has gone down. And look at the vertical intercept guys, M by Py, M by Py. So vertical intercept is unchanged. Look at the slope, minus Px by Py initially. Now for the same denominator, you can see that my numerator has gone up, so my slope has gone up. So I can write the slope of the budget line has gone up, which means the budget line has become more steeper than before. So the diagram also changes now. Let's draw the diagram. Let's look at the diagram now and let's see what happens. Okay, so let us look at the case when price of good X has gone up. So good X is measured on the horizontal axis, good Y is measured on the vertical axis. Initial budget line, we have horizontal intercept m by px, vertical intercept m by py, slope of the budget line is minus px by py. Okay, you can see horizontal intercept has now gone down from m by px to m upon px double dash. Horizontal intercept has gone down, vertical intercept is the same, and you can see that the budget line has become more steeper. Steeper means it is making a higher angle with the x-axis. When we say mathematically that the line has become more flatter, it means it is making a lower angle with the horizontal axis now. And when I say that the line has become more steeper, mathematically it means it is making now a higher angle with the horizontal axis. So you can see initially my budget line was AB, now it has become AB2. So it has shifted inwards. And logically also you should be able to argue it out. Since good X has become, more expensive, the consumer can now afford less of it than before. The consumer can now afford less of it than before. Since good X has become more expensive, guys, for the same good Y, you can see vertical intercept is not changing. For the same good Y, since good X has become more expensive, the consumer can afford to consume less of it than before. So I hope students have understood the case of price of good X rising. So guys, this is where I intend to stop. With this, our topic on budget lines is over within consumer theory. Okay. In the next lecture, we will now talk about consumer preferences. In this lecture, we had a good discussion on consumer affordability, which is captured by budget lines. But in the next lecture, we will discuss about consumer preferences. Okay, homework for all students for this lecture. Try the case. So try the following cases. So try the cases. So what happens to the budget line? What happens to the budget line when price of good Y falls, keeping price of good X and income constant? Second, what happens to the budget line when price of good Y rises, keeping price of good X and income constant? Third case, what happens to the budget line? What happens to the budget line when price of good X rises and price of good Y rises, and when both the prices rise and sub case 1, increase in Px is equal to increase in Py, increase in Px is more than increase in Py, increase in Px is less than increase in Py. So guys, try these cases at home. And the fourth case, what happens to the budget line? What happens to the budget line when both prices are falling, when Px also falls and Py also falls, and fall in Px is equal to fall in PY. Case A, case B, fall in PX is more than fall in PY. And case C, fall in PX is less than the fall in PY. So guys, try these cases at home, okay, and you can get them cross-checked from me, okay. So students are requested to go through this lecture and try the following budget line cases at home, okay. This is where I stop in this lecture, okay. Once you practice these cases, you can mail me your answers. Mail me your answers at my mail ID, which you can see on your screens. Okay, mail me your answers at the following email ID, so I can correct them. So this is where I stop. I hope all students have enjoyed this lecture. In the next lecture of Introductory Microeconomics, we will be studying about the consumer preferences. Okay, so this is where I stop in this particular lecture.